Welcome everyone to Latter Day Digest and the Midlife Revolution and Momo Nomo. We're doing today's Salt Lake Expositor episode on Floodlit. And Randy, let us know why we chose this episode.
Absolutely. And by the way, I want to mention that you notice that Megan is not moving. That's because that's actually a photograph of her. She's not feeling too well today, so we really appreciate her coming on in spite of that. But she won't be on camera, which is bad news for all of you, I know, because then you have to look at Gene and I. One of my favorite podcasters, I have several, but one of my favorites that I watch every day religiously is the Mormon News Update on Megan Hayes' channel, and her channel is Generally Unquotable. Not only does she do a very comprehensive newscast of what's going on in the Mormon Church on a daily basis, but she also has featured subjects that she covers. And one of the subjects that she covered is Floodlit, which is a very interesting website that talks about the epidemic, the plague within the LDS Church and within our nation of child SA. It's a very serious subject and something that we all want to do whatever we can do to minimize the occurrence of it and to take care of the business that needs to be taken care of if it's reported, because that has not been happening within the LDS Church.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys being willing to cover this subject because, again, like you're saying, it's not something that everybody's like, oh, good, let's talk about this. It's an uncomfortable subject for most people because they've either been victimized in some way or because it's so disturbing that they don't really want to talk about it. And I don't blame anybody for not wanting to talk about it, but I'm super grateful to floodlit.org for calling attention to this. I think they started their website a couple of years ago, and they started posting all of the pictures and stories of victims, not pictures of the victims, but pictures of the perpetrators who had been convicted and the stories of the victims. And they started organizing it by map data so that you can go to the map in your area and find out where the perpetrators are or have been convicted in your area. Because, when we were talking about architecture of abuse, Alyssa Grenfell pointed out that there is a sex offender database that we can go to see who in our neighborhood has been convicted of a sex crime. But we can't do that in our LDS congregations when these are the people that we're trusting with our children. And so floodlit.org is doing a lot to try and call more attention to this problem. And I'm grateful to them.
Absolutely. Gene, you want to run this clip?
Yeah, I'll set the clip on right now.
Before you do that,
Now let's go to...
Sorry, I just want to say I'm under the weather. I've never understood that expression because all of us technically are under the weather unless we're in an airplane. But yeah, I've got bad allergies. I'm not feeling the greatest. So I'm keeping my camera off so that I can mute myself and cough and sneeze without it being disruptive to the show.
Some info from floodlit.org that gives more insight into the claims by Mormon church lawyer Randy Austin that a child's safety always comes first. We never, ever, ever leave a child in harm's way, ever. Floodlit says, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, commonly known as the Mormon Church, has long positioned itself as a leader in handling abuse, with officials claiming its approach is the gold standard and that no religious organization has done more. But a startling discovery from a 2023 lawsuit challenges that narrative. In a 7-page declaration filed in 2023 during a California California's civil suit against the church, its risk management director, Brandon Wilson, stated, "The church does not keep a repository of documents relating to allegations, claims, or notification of child SA. There is no SA file." Wilson further explained that the church does not track members' positions, callings beyond bishop or stake president, and retrieving any related records would require manual sifting through unsorted disciplinary files, a process complicated by redactions and legal protections. This admission came in response to plaintiffs seeking documents on abuse claims from 1990 to 2005. The church resisted production, citing sacred protections before settling confidentially. Wilson's declaration paints a picture of an organization that prioritizes secrecy over systematic tracking, even as it faces hundreds of lawsuits alleging failures to report abuse. Randy Austin's longtime employer, Curtin McConkie, was co-founded by Oscar McConkie Jr., brother of Mormon apostle Bruce McConkie. Recently convicted David McConkie is a grandson of Bruce. In a 2017 oral history interview, Oscar McConkie, who died in 2020, shared the story of working on a case for the Mormon Church and preventing a bishop from having to testify due to clergy-privileged information. A bishop had been subpoenaed to come and testify. Comes to me as represent. I represent the church. I make a motion to quash the subpoena based on the fact that the only thing the bishop knows about it is clergy privileged and that he can't be testifying about it. And so I take the bishop down to the court and they're trying the case. And as I walked in, the judge recognized me and saw that I had a man with me. And he announced from the bench, "For the record, I see Mr. McConkie and the bishop have arrived. We'll take a 10-minute recess and you fine lawyers will meet with Mr. McConkie and you'll determine whether the bishop can testify and if he can testify, what he can testify about." And then he says, "For the record, now for the record, if it's going to help you lawyers in making this determination, this court is going to do just exactly whatever Mr. McConkie says. Now, you got to practice law a long time to get that kind of treatment." Floodlit's database reveals the Bisbee, Arizona case is no anomaly. Floodlit has documented 374 instances where Mormon leaders allegedly perpetrated sex crimes or failed to report abuse to authorities, $52 million paid in settlements after alleged failures, 80 reports of abuse in LDS buildings, including temples, 77 convicted former Mormon bishops, 94 ongoing criminal cases, and 122 ongoing civil lawsuits involving Mormon abuse allegations. The system's core issue: risk management over prevention. Wilson, the person who made the statement about the abuse files, role itself is telling. The church handles abuse through risk management, not a dedicated prevention office. It keeps detailed records on dissenters via the Strengthening Church Members Committee and historical minutiae, example, ward minutes from the 1960s Tasmania, yet claims no SA files. Why? Critics argue it's to minimize liability, not maximize safety. Church doctrine limits questioning, and policies like one-on-one bishop interviews, despite 2018 changes allowing observers, thanks to excommunicated advocate Sam Young, enable situations where grooming and abuse can occur. Background checks are inconsistent, and annotations on abuser records aren't always enforced. Example, a convicted offender called to youth roles. In fact, they're sometimes erased with First Presidency approval. Floodlit exists to fill this void. Floodlit has analyzed thousands of documents and spoken with tearful survivors whose reports to bishops went nowhere, abuse continued, and the victims were shamed. Floodlit now has a call to action. Share your story. Demand accountability. After 41 plus years of SA lawsuits, how can the Mormon Church continue to claim effectiveness without data? We invite you to help light up the system. If you reported abuse to an LDS bishop or know someone who did, share your story with us by September 30th, 2025. Your experiences will inform our upcoming report on Mormon Church abuse handling, to be released by year's end. Contact Floodlit to contribute. Whether the bishop reported or not, Floodlit wants to document it all to build a comprehensive, fact-based resource. Thank you to survivors, advocates, and tipsters who've helped Floodlit expose these truths. By gathering and publishing accurate records, Floodlit can pressure the system to change, protecting children over institutions. Now we are going to grab some info from the Salt Lake Tribune from an article titled, "Did the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Evade Millions of Dollars in Taxes It Owed?" I talked about this already.
So that was pretty
You know,
much.
you've got to be kidding me. When I watched this initially, a few things reached out and grabbed me. First of all, the fact that there were so many. And I know that this is just the tip of the iceberg. These are the ones that are reported, documented. Uh, who knows how many actually occur that go unreported? And secondly, the different places that it's happened in the temple. What? I think it was 97 occurrences within the temples.
Yeah,
That is
it's
amazing.
staggering. It's disturbing. And also, I don't believe for 1 second that they don't have records on this. In fact, Tim Kosnoff, the attorney who appears on Architecture of Abuse, says that he's seen these files. They do keep these files, and they're presented during discovery phase of lawsuits. But every time the lawsuit is finished, he has to surrender those files back. So Tim Kosnoff has said, I've seen them. I've been able to make notes on them, but he's not allowed to copy them, and he has to return them to the church when the suit is over.
Yeah, heaven forbid the church should release the information so that something proper can be done about it. Let's keep the sanctity of the LDS church intact by not reporting any of this and sweeping it under the rug. We've got to keep that reputation shiny and clean.
And I think I remember hearing something about a call to action from Floodlit. Sorry, Megan, you're not muted when you cough.
I'm so sorry. I thought I was muted.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. But so anyhow, there's a call to action for people. The age of reporting abuse is decades after the abuse happens on average. And people don't report unless they know other people are reporting often. And so Floodlit wants to let people know that they're not alone, and that if you know somebody that has a story, or if you yourself have a story, they're interested in publicizing it to hopefully to get more people to share their stories. And this is the only way more action will be taken that will safeguard those in positions of vulnerability.
Right. So what
I
I
recent-
heard on there is that floodlit.org is asking more survivors to come and publish their story on the website by September 30th, because they're going to be compiling a new report on all of these cases that have not been prosecuted, or in which the victims have not received any sort of compensation or judgment in their favor.
Is that listed on the website that we can share right now, or?
I don't know if it is, but that's what I got out of that report. But I'll add this to the stage here so we can see. It does say
full screen.
At the top, it asks. It says they're raising money to be able to get court documents in roughly 50 ongoing criminal investigations.
Yeah, don't leave it up to the church to make the report, because it most likely will never get reported. You know, I recently watched a podcast in which there was a woman who was telling about her story. She had been molested when she was younger by someone, and it took her some years to come out and get the courage to report it. And when she did go to the bishop said, well, you know, it's delayed and your reporting is delayed. And since then, this man has been rebaptized, and so his sins have been washed away. So we need to just forget about it.
That's right.
Who the hell can forget about that? And are you kidding me? Sins washed away. So I guess to all those abusers, molesters, just get baptized again.
A sure cure.
Well, that's exactly what the message is coming from the church, it's very clear where their priority is. Their priority is with protecting the abuser. Otherwise, they would track these individuals. They would put it in their membership record so that anybody receiving that membership record anew would read the file of, what's been going on and, hopefully not assign that person to work with children. The other point of this is that, if the offender has gone through the repentance process, that doesn't mean he's gone through a counseling process. That doesn't mean he is not going to reoffend. It just means that he's checked the boxes that the priesthood leaders have asked him to check so that he can, be rebaptized so they can collect his tithing. So very clearly, they don't care about the victim in that case, because if they did, they would say, even though he's repented, we're going to leave that up to God to forgive him, but we're going to limit his ability to interact with his victims and his ability to groom new victims.
Yeah. Trevor made a comment, and it can be read two ways. It's either Jesus can forgive Randy or Jesus can forgive Randy. I hope it's the first of the two. And I know that it's with tongue in cheek, by the way.
Because we know Trevor.
Yes, because we know Trevor. But of course, we can be forgiven for our sins, but not without all of the proper steps being taken. And without, that doesn't mean that you haven't created a lifetime of damage to your victims.
And part of the architecture of abuse is that there are many of the leaders of the Mormon Church have received an ordinance in which they feel like they can sin no more, that anything they do is not going to be held against them. They still get to go. They've already earned their place in the highest heaven, and that there's nothing they can do save becoming an apostate.
Right.
Damage their future in heaven. It's called the
I had a companion in my mission who said that he, in his patriarchal blessing, he was told that his calling and election was made sure. In other words, that he will have a second anointing. And I'm just dying to talk to him and find out if he's actually had that. But this is not the topic of the show by any means. But it's actually in Mormon minds. Some LDS folks do believe that they've been automatically exonerated from any wrongdoing. And so they have free will to do anything they want. And that's dangerous.
Get out of hell free card.
Yeah, and it also warrants a further discussion about forgiveness, because forgiveness is an entirely religious concept that has nothing to do with how you interact with that person on an ongoing basis. So, the concept of letting go of feelings of ill will towards a person who has wronged you is great. But that doesn't mean that you continue to interact with that person in the same way that you did prior to the abuse. And so you can forgive somebody and still exclude them from your community and from your company. You can forgive someone and still hold them accountable by denying them callings that interact with children. You can forgive somebody and still allow them to come and take the sacrament, just not to be in the same congregation as their victims. There are ways that they could protect victims if they wanted to, but they don't. And that's one of the reasons why Floodlit exists.
Right. They feel in their hearts that they are forgiven, yet there's been no therapy. There's been no correction of damage to their victims. It can't be corrected. These people will suffer for that for the rest of their lives. Yet, they can take the sacrament.
And isn't restitution part of forgiveness?
restitution and feeling remorse and apologizing, and there's
And
several steps,
promise to never do it again,
and not doing it again.
and not doing it again.
Yeah, I
I'm
think somebody said, one of those old white dudes in Salt Lake said that you'll know that somebody's repented if from their sins if they confess them and forsake them. And I guess those words have different meanings to different people.
I was so religious I could 5-sake them.
oh my gosh.
Wah, wah.
Yeah. I can understand if someone has, let's say that they're a kleptomaniac and they have this disorder that they feel like they have to steal things, or someone feels as though for some reason they have to light fires. They become a kleptomaniac. I understand that there's something in the brain that triggers that. But what I can't comprehend, what I can't even begin to understand, is how a human adult could hurt a child in this manner. I don't understand how that can possibly be a thing. And it's so demented, in my opinion, that I can't accept it. I can't accept that, they have a problem. They have, they're tempted and they fall to temptation. What? That should never even be a temptation, because it's just so out of the realm of thinking to me, and to probably most everyone who's listening to this.
Yeah. So Randy, I don't know the exact right terminology. I think kleptomania is compulsion to steal is what they call it now, or compulsion to shoplift. And then pyromania, or compulsion to set fires. Those are both disorders, right? And I think this one, attraction to minors, is another thing that falls as a disorder, meaning that it's literally out of order of what was, originally designed or intended, however you want to say that. It's not an orientation, it's a disorder. And so I think if we classify it that way and we realize it literally is something that is a compulsion. And just like all of us, when we have compulsions, we have to learn how to control those compulsions. I think one of the biggest problems with people not being able to control it is the shame around it. And the idea that, if they do go and confess these things, well, then they're going to be, restricted from sacrament and all those other things. So I think it goes to what we were talking with Natasha Helfer about on the episode about purity culture, that any culture that shames or represses even normative sexual behavior, it's going to come out sideways somewhere. And so, that's why it's so apt to call it the architecture of abuse, because it's built in to the culture for there to be so much shame around any kind of sexuality.
I respect what you're saying, Megan, but I also have to say that even though it's a disorder, someone lighting fires ruins property, and someone stealing may deprive someone of something that's monetarily theirs. But this goes to a whole another level, that they if this is a disorder, it's a whole different ball game, because you're destroying other lives.
Right. And I'm not disagreeing with you by any means, because, as a survivor, I've been impacted by this as well.
I know, yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it boils down to selfishness. Somebody doesn't see that their actions hurt other people. They only think that for them to either get a buzz or a high or some other need that they feel, they do these things. They commit murder. They do large crimes or other things. They're what do you call it? Sociopath, right? They're not understanding the results.
Right. And part of my point too is that if more people can learn to see this as a disorder, by definition, that requires, professional help. And so that's kind of what I'm trying to say, is that if there is somebody out there with these kinds of attractions, they need to get professional help so that they don't end up harming people.
Yeah, hopefully they recognize it before it actually occurs.
That's right. And if the church were mandatory reporters, then they could alert the authorities and the people that have skills in these areas to get help or protect the public. So Megan, as part of this episode, I was thinking that we could sort of go through some of the things that floodlit.org has. Do you think that's a good idea, or should we just let everybody?
No, I think that's a great idea, because I think showing people how to use the website, is a good way to let people know how to use the site. So this is probably my favorite part. If you go over to the right side of the screen over here, you can click on View the Floodlit Map. And you can zoom in on where your particular area is. And it takes a minute for it to load sometimes. And you can go and see, all the cases in your area. You can zoom into where your ward is located. And, you can see historical cases and current cases in your ward. So obviously, I've got pop-ups. Sorry, guys. Obviously, Utah is a hotbed, because, that's kind of where the majority of church members are anyway. But even if you come down here to San Antonio, we're not immune. You can click on where the actual cases are, and it will show you. This is actually a recent one. His court case, I believe, just finished last year, if I'm not mistaken. So you can go and you can click on it. You can see the person's picture. You can see the sources. So they've got the news articles here, and then as well as the court records. And so you can read the news articles right here. You can look at the case documents, and then you can see, if the person was convicted or incarcerated or not. And then there's a space where you can add information. So if you have more details about a particular case that aren't reported, you can upload files and all of that and submit it. And then floodlit.org will review it and fact check it, and then come to a determination if they want to add it to the report. So,
oh, that's awesome.
Sorry, I thought I was sharing this part the whole time. So once you click on it, again, there's the picture, and then here are the sources, the news articles, the case documents, and then here's the place down at the bottom where you can add your own information and files if you want to. And then you can optionally submit your email, or you can use a pseudonym if you don't want to be named.
So this comes with all the receipts. I mean,
Exactly.
It's not just speculative. This is hardcore documentation.
Exactly. And they vet all of these, all of the stories that they put on here. If you're a survivor and you want to go and share your story, I'll go back real quick to the homepage there. And then you can look at all of the reports. All of these links are clickable. You can click on Bishop's ongoing criminal cases, ongoing civil suits. And then you can go here and click on Report an Abuser. And it gives you a place to fill in all of these, but you don't have to fill in all of them. And then you can also remain anonymous on these reports if you want to or not. They will post your story even if you don't want to give a full name, and even if you want to remain anonymous. And I think that's really important, because one of the reasons why people don't come forward more often is because they're afraid of repercussions. If they say who the abuser was and they also name their name, they're concerned about getting pushback from family members or church members or ward members. So this is a place where you can go and report your story without leaving your personal name.
You know, we talked about one of the things that we as podcasters, the three of us want to make sure of is that we're not just presenting information, but we're presenting ways that maybe all of us can help pitch in, help to reduce this travesty. And Megan, what you just did right there is an incredible source that people can use to get the information that out there that possibly people would normally, like you say, be hesitant, or they would have a degree of trepidation to report this because they don't want any backlash. Here you go. Here's a way that you can do it without that fear. And that's amazing. I'm so glad you brought this up, Megan.
Yeah, and that's why Floodlit is calling for people to put these cases on the page, because it gives victims a way to express what happened to them, and it's relatively safe for them to do so. And then Floodlit does do their due diligence. They won't put a case on there. For example, if I were to, accuse somebody by name and then I don't leave my name, they're not going to just put that story on there without doing some research and due diligence into it. And if they find that there's no evidence to corroborate what the victim is saying, then they'll leave the perpetrator's name off, but they'll post the story anyway, from what I understand. And it just gives victims a safe place to say what happened to them without worrying that something's going to come down on them.
That's awesome. And all of you who are listening, and we so appreciate you listening. One of the things that you can do in addition to this is share this video so that people can glean some of this information. And who knows how many people might be helped by you sharing this video.
Yeah, I also really like the right side over here. Underneath the Floodlit map, you can go to the most viewed stories. You can go to recent news, and then there's a learning room basically where you can go and look at the documentation over the course of the years of what the real statistics are, because the church isn't going to tell you. You can even go and look at different settlements. You can see, the recent news where they settled over 100 at the same time. You can read about the helpline. There's just so much information here.
If the church was sincere in what it preaches and says, and I'm not trying to bash the Mormon church, but they would fund something like this. But I do have to wonder who funds this, because this is an incredible resource. I wonder if it's dependent on donations by users, or because this would be such a worthy cause for the church to say, hey, we have, a measly $300 billion. Let's help out in this cause.
Yeah, if I understand correctly, this is a nonprofit organization. It is funded largely by donations from visitors, if I understand that correctly. They also have resources and help for survivors. It says, if you're a survivor and you need help right now, here are the resources right here. And then, lots of different abuse survivor support organizations and everything. But on the homepage, it does make a plea for donations. They're raising money to be able to get court documents in roughly 50 ongoing criminal and civil cases in Utah. And so you do have to pay the page to download all of that. So yeah, there's a place here where you can donate.
I think that would be a very worthy cause to donate to.
Yeah, if you've recently stopped paying your tithing and you're looking for a worthy cause to put your 10% towards, this is it.
I stopped paying my tithing, but I guarantee you it hasn't been recently.
Yeah, it's interesting. For me, that was the last thing to go. So I think the last tithing that I paid might have been somewhere around the 2021 timeframe.
Yeah, I taught my sons that, well, and my daughter, that rather than pay tithing, I've chosen, and this was before I left the church, I've chosen when I learned that tithing didn't go to help the needy and the poor, when I would drive and see someone holding a sign on a corner, and some of them are very sincere, they actually need help. And when I recognized that, that's where my 10% went, was helping them, because then I knew that it was doing some good instead of investing in a mall or a farm.
Right. So Ms. Woozy asked about other ways that you can help. I would say you can go to these social media links to follow Floodlit on all the different platforms and share their content. That's a really great way to get the word out. You can also fill out this form right here and tell them, hey, I have this skill, or this is how I'd like to help. I'd like to volunteer. They will contact you and let you know how you can contribute to their cause.
That's wonderful. What a great opportunity.
A couple of years ago, Maven Brody did a general conference marathon for 36 hours straight. She had people reading Floodlit cases, and it was very moving, and it got a lot of views. And I'm trying to look for it so I can post a link to it in case people want to hear the stories being read instead of reading them yourself. Randy, you had a tough experience looking over the website. Is that right?
Well, it literally made my stomach hurt to see that what I thought should be a rare occurrence is anything but. It's like I've said, it's a freaking epidemic in this nation, and especially in the LDS Church. People from Mesa, Arizona, I keep reading the Arizona cases, and that just blows me away, because I'm thinking, well, that's my hometown back. I don't live there anymore, but I thought that was such a little celestial kingdom I lived in, and I was so wrong. This is rampant, and it's going on. I don't know if it's always been like this or if this is something that's a little more recent, but I'm disgusted at humanity for this, and I hate that feeling.
Well, we should all be disgusted and outraged by it. I always talk about the idea that there's only so much you can do. And so consuming this content is tough for some people. And hopefully all of you are just taking care of your own mental health as you consume this material, and only consume the amount of stuff that you can do something about. And here's something you actually can do something about.
I have an 11-year-old stepdaughter, and I raised 4 kids in addition to that. And they're so precious to me. And now with my 11-year-old, I worry constantly when she's not under our care, when she's not with Amanda and I, or her daddy and her stepmother on that side. If she's not with us, I don't trust anybody. It's like, oh, she's staying the night at a friend's house. I trust that Amanda asks the proper questions before she lets her go over there. But I've just become so wary about this, because I don't know what I would do if I learned that someone abused my stepdaughter. I would probably end up going to prison, if you know what I mean. Fortunately, she's got her Nana and Grandpa, Amanda and I, and her daddy and stepmama. But other than that, I don't trust anyone. Not today. And especially not in a church.
Yeah, no, nor should you. And all of us who care for children have to do our very best to make sure that they're protected. That being said, we can't protect our kids from every single eventuality, but there are a lot of things we can do to mitigate the risk. And we've talked about some of those before. One of them is, making sure that you introduce yourself to everyone who is interacting with your child, whether it's a coach, a teacher, club sponsor, something. Go look them in the eye, shake their hand, tell them your name, and let them know that you're here for, this is my child, and I'm here to meet you so that I understand exactly what's going on with these activities. And the other part is, to just have some common sense in your vigilance. I went for a very, very long stretch where I didn't allow any of my kids to have sleepovers at all of any kind. And I've loosened that a little bit to the idea that, if I know all of the individuals in the house, then, under certain circumstances I will, but it still gives me pause. The other thing to note is that, again, we can't protect our kids from everything, but what we can do is try to foster the kind of relationship that they feel comfortable coming to us and talking to us when there is a problem.
Yeah, and teaching them the red flags, what to look out for, and to walk away or run away when needed. When I lived in Florida, my daughter had a sleepover with one of her friends, and she was getting a little older. I think she was 14, 15. She wasn't just a toddler, but she had a sleepover, and she took a shower the next morning as they prepared to go do some activity. And she said when she got out of the shower, she felt like she was being watched, and she looked at the window, and this friend of hers' father was peering through the window at her. And we had moved to Tennessee, and I said, "Oh my gosh, why didn't you tell me this?" She said, "Because I knew you'd kill him." But you know what? I wouldn't have killed him, but I sure would have paid him a visit and poked his eyes out. And I'm not joking.
Yeah, I think it evokes, the dragon parent part of us when our kids are harmed or potentially harmed. I know that does for me too. And it's really difficult to think about the idea that, I was telling somebody this the other day, the only way we can really prevent anything from happening to our kids is to, tie a string around their wrist and tie a string around our wrist and go with them everywhere. But we can't do that, because what we want is for our kids to be self-sufficient. We want them to be, empowered to protect themselves. And so I liked what you said about teaching them the warning signs and the red flags that they need to be aware of, and to feel comfortable leaving any situation for any reason if they feel uncomfortable. I liked in Architecture of Abuse when one of the therapists talked about asking your kids if there are any tricky people in their lives. It's a good way of classifying somebody to be on the lookout for, somebody to watch out for.
Right. Because, heaven knows, now I know, after joining this community of Exmos, now I realize what a plague this is. And so, yeah, I've become that much more leery about, anyone I love going out there and being subject to the world.
And Megan, were you ever told that was just a burden you had to bear? That was part of what the fire that you had to go through, the fire that you might have had to walk through in order to get where you are?
Well, there's that general teaching as a kid that, the hardships that you're going to go through before you come down here, and that you agree to them. That teaching is incredibly harmful. And the other one is that, God's not going to give you any struggle or problem that he knows you can't overcome. So he's only going to give you what you're strong enough to handle. And, that always made me think, well, I stop it. I don't, there was a point at which I said, I don't want to be strong anymore. I want to be safe, as a kid.
Right.
And, but there wasn't really anybody I felt like I was safe to talk to about those things, because challenging those dogmatic ideas is not safe for a kid or a teenager to do in most places in the church, where, you're going to be referred back to the miracle of forgiveness,
Right. And it's one thing to say, we can do hard things, right? You can overcome things that you think are insurmountable in your life, but to just make a blanket statement that God is going to give you your challenges based on what you can handle or something like that, or what you deserve from your pre-existence or other things like that.
Or what you learn. That was the other thing I heard, is that God's going to give you the challenges that'll teach you the things that you need to learn in order for you to be perfected.
Right. It's just too
close.
much. Just tell people, put your mind to it. You can do a lot of things, right? Instead of such a harmful blanket statement that we get. So Megan, are you holding out okay? Do you want to bow out and let Randy and I finish showing some other parts of the website? I have it queued up in case you needed to leave.
I'm doing okay right now, but I will let you head up this next part so I can rest my vocal cords a little.
Hey, and you better get rid of this before my son Garrett and I come to see you.
Well, when is that going to be, Randy?
Well, I figured it would be after CrimeCon.
That's something to look forward to. That's for sure. I'm sure I'll be
have to,
well by then.
But I'll have to, coordinate it with you and him. But yes.
So yeah, I'll just say that it starts off by some general statistics at the top: 4,303 reports, down to 122 ongoing civil lawsuits, and 94 ongoing criminal cases. Right as we speak, 200 things are in the court, 200 actions. And so the church leaders. Go ahead.
I should tell you something right there. That you left the page I was looking at, but look at the number of, there you go. Over 4,300 reports of sex abuse by Latter-day Saints. And how many are actually criminal cases? 94. What?
Well, those are ongoing. In other words, the settled ones are not included in these ongoing numbers at the bottom.
Oh, okay. Because I thought that's all.
These are the ones that are currently in the court. Something that happened 20 years ago that was already adjudicated is not in these, the bottom twos. But yes, 77 convicted former Mormon bishops. And so if you did the math, how many members does a bishop oversee? Maybe 500. So if there was one bishop and for every 3,000 bishops there are 77 convicted. So for every 3,000 members, there might be 77 more in a stake, say, that have been convicted. So each stake might have 77 convictions over the last maybe 50 years. I don't know when these reports start. And we only know of 52 million paid after alleged failures. We don't know the total of the non-disclosure agreements where somebody will get 30,000 or 200,000. Mormon Stories podcast had somebody on where they couldn't say what the amount was, but another lawyer that happened to be a guest on the show mentioned that it was $200,000 because they happened to hear what it was, and it wasn't part of their attorney-client privilege, so they could say what the number was, even though the person that got the settlement wasn't allowed it. And so that's
and this is shocking, the numbers you're reading, but like I said, this is just the tip of the iceberg. having been a detective, and responding to so many um, uh, domestic violence calls, I realize that while there's a ton of them, that's just the tip of the iceberg with domestic violence. And I know this is the same. These are just the ones that are reported. What about all those that are not reported and people are too ashamed or afraid to come forward? Yeah. So these numbers are telling, but they're not telling the total truth.
Yeah, and I just always want to throw this out whenever we talk about it because there's so many misconceptions in society about false reporting. First, I want to say the average age of reporting for a man who has suffered abuse, whether it happens as a child or adolescent, the average age of reporting is 52. So to have a statute of limitations of 21 is pretty ridiculous, which is what Utah has right now. And the other thing is, I've always said the statistic that's reported by the commission that studies sexual abuse cases, that when sexual abuse is reported, less than 6% of those reports turn out to be false. And when they're reported to law enforcement, that number drops to 3%. And Tim Kosanoff, who has been an attorney working on these cases for the past 40 years, has said that it virtually just doesn't happen in his experience. So whenever we do shows or stories like this, I always will get somebody in my comments who say, oh, there are so many false reports. No, there aren't. And we need to stop telling that story because it makes it so that fewer people are believed. So the narrative that is so important is to listen to all victims.
And Megan, I think when they say false report, what they're kind of missing is that somebody could self-report they were abused, right? And there could be a false report, maybe in the 1 or 2% thing. When Jasmine Rapoli mentioned the lawyer for the church who has the church's interests in mind, that the false reports go up when there's mandated reporting. Well, that's just because a mandated reporter wants to be safe, better to be safe than sorry. So they might see a bruise on a child and report it. It gets investigated and it's just a bruise, right? But if there was something that warranted further investigation, that would lead to more perpetrators being caught, and it would lead to an overall safer society. So to throw out those statistics that, it would, jam the courts or the police officers' duties or something like that. That's not what it is. It's just that people trying to be cautious and reporting things that need to be checked out, right? Just in case. It's not like it's clogging the system.
Exactly. And it's a good point to make that among those 6% and 3%, those are cases usually where people report something, but it can't be verified because there's only so much evidence or there's only one person reporting it.
Still doesn't mean it's false.
Exactly. Yeah. And the hope is that the more people come forward, the more people will feel comfortable, coming forward to corroborate or tell their own experience so that, more victims get the justice that they deserve.
Here's the spot on the website that's just near the top, report an abuser. So you can click on it and I suppose start filling out a form or getting into contact with somebody. I guess I could click on it to see what happens.
When I lived in Mesa, Arizona, my wife's OBGYN, gynecologist, that's the same thing, right? My wife's gynecologist, who was LDS and very respected in the community, a woman came forward and said that he had molested her during some kind of a visit, just a routine visit. And then LDS women came out of the woodwork who said, well, I have the courage to report it now because it's been reported. And fortunately, my wife didn't experience that, but um, I was shocked at how many women this man had molested, and he was a respected. I don't remember what his position was in the church, but he was a respected LDS doctor, and he went down for it because someone finally reported it.
And my understanding, there was the OBGYN in the Utah Salt Lake Valley area that once other people were coming out with it and they did news stories, almost 100 more cases came out of at least, they had suspicions. And so they wanted to get more information at least.
Yeah,
Who
when
was that
somebody-
wingnut? Go ahead, Megan.
I was just going to say, when somebody comes forward and makes a report public, generally speaking, that does encourage other victims of the same perpetrator to come forward as well. So that's what we always want.
So I just wanted to point out that this in report abuse form, they're asking for a name. If you know that, like the person's age or date of birth, is the abuser alive? Where did the abuse occur? Information about the abuse. What did church leaders do about it? Then more information about that. Now, we also know that the helpline, the hotline that bishops call, the first information they get is to determine their liability and not whether they're trying to call 911 or something to try to get help for the victim, right? That's just a funny part of the church's hotline.
Who was that idiot that was all he was I think he was a chiropractor or a physical therapist in the Olympics for the girls gymnastics? That one girl came forward and then almost all of them came forward. And
Larry Nasser
doing internal manipulation through their, VJs. No, there's no physical therapy that needs to be done. But he convinced them that it was perfectly normal for him to manipulate them in that fashion. Unfortunately, he got busted for that as well.
Well, that's what basically all abusers do, is they convince you that what they're doing is normal. And if you think it's not normal, then you're the crazy one.
Right. Yeah, they gaslight you.
Well, here's the sponsored content. We should get sponsored. LDSsurvivorclaim.com, phone number 949-748-1000. And here's the map again. Special report on Mormon sex abuse lawsuits.
We should also mention that if you are a survivor and you would like to make a claim, you can go to kosnoff.com, KOSNOFF.com. I think it is .com. And you can, do an intake form with Tim Kosnoff's firm as well.
There was also a woman in the church who was, I don't know if she was part of the September 6th or soon thereafter. She was publishing from church records. Somehow she got them of people who have either left their callings or went to jail because of abuse. She found a list and she published it, and she got excommunicated for vocally talking about how there was a problem. And that was in the 1990s, I believe.
Well, I'm glad she did
better-
that, but I'm sad they excommunicated her for it, because that just proves that they're guilty.
Of cover up.
Right. Yeah. Well, if that's basis for excommunication, they should be showing up at my door.
Because you're on your rooftop shouting out to the world there's a problem with Mormon sexual abuse.
Yes, and
Just
several
about.
other problems.
Virtually.
Hey, I expect to see a couple of men in suits and ties show up at my door anytime now with all of the podcasts that I've done talking about what I believe are serious issues with the doctrine as well as these types of issues, I hope they show up at my door. I would love that. And anyone listening, if you're one of those excommunicators, come on over
That's right. The
and invite me
SAMs.
into the state president's office and see if I show up.
Everyone, Floodlet's in the chat.
Hooray. I sent them a notice that we were doing this. And so I maybe it got through.
Thank you, Floodlit. Thank you for all you do.
And thank you for your compassion for victims and your advocacy for victims. It's invaluable. And I know that there are hundreds of people who have gotten relief from being able to publicly tell their story in ways that they couldn't before. And I'm among those. So thank you.
And I'm sorry that you are, Megan. I'm so sorry that you had to pass through that. No one should ever have to endure that.
That's right.
It's very true. And I can't say that I'm grateful that I went through it, but what I do appreciate about that experience is being able to uniquely understand survivors in a way that others can't. And that's, everything that I talk about has to do with healing our own emotional wounds so that we don't become abusers, and also helping others to know that they're not alone in how they feel.
Here's something I wasn't aware of. You could show support to survivors by, says, join hundreds of others worldwide by adding a personal message of support on our Lights map. It's anonymous and only takes a minute. You can add your message right down here at the bottom below this Lights. Look at that. We're going to floodlight Utah maybe with it pretty soon. That'd be good.
Megan, you said something interesting, and if anyone knows the answer to this, you mentioned that you're glad that you have the education you have so that you don't become an abuser. Do you think that people who are children of abusers are more likely to become an abuser?
It's statistically more likely, although I don't know what the exact statistics are, because it's kind of hard to report those things, right? Because you don't always know when someone becomes an abuser until they get, reported or something happens. So I think that the important thing to note is that when you are abused, psychologically, it becomes important to protect yourself from further abuse. And so many people become abusers as a false protective mechanism against further abuse. And so does it excuse what they did? No, but it explains it, and it helps us know. And this is something I've talked about so often, is that we all have unmet emotional needs of one kind or another. And if we don't learn how to meet our own emotional needs, then we can seek it out in dysfunctional ways. And that's part of what turns into abusive dynamics. It's not knowing how to regulate your own emotions, validate yourself instead of looking for external validation, and learning how to meet your own emotional needs without getting it dysfunctionally from other people.
That's right. You think about it, and child victims are subjected to knowing different things about their bodies, knowing, being subject to that abuse causes them to be more self-aware, causes them to feel maybe worthless at some point in the future. And those things tied together could cause them to do it to other people for whatever mental reasons. And so it does make sense, but I don't think it necessarily causes it. But yeah, we need more mental health care for victims. But it starts at being aware, right? It starts at believing the children when they say they don't like it when Uncle Jack takes them into the back room or something like that. And so,
well, it can even be something as simple as, I feel uncomfortable when I'm around Uncle Rob. you know, oh, well, tell me more about that, you know.
Right.
Yeah. And so,
Hey, I just want to interject this. I noticed in the comments some people weren't able to find uh, Megan because her name is not on the screen. If the comments aren't on here, do our names appear on the screen so people have a clue of who we are for the
so
new folks?
when we
Okay, there we
like
go.
this, when we're showing a comment, it takes our names off. And I don't know if there's a format you can do where it keeps your names on, but
There is.
yeah. So Randy and I
Okay.
are not Megan, no matter what.
Right. I guess Megan isn't very telling if you don't have Connor. There you go. There we go.
Magic. It's like magic.
It's magical.
So yeah, so we wanted everyone to know that floodlit.org exists, that there's a place you can report something that happened in your life from a long time ago, or if it's happening right now, or if you know somebody that is acting in a way that maybe they should at least be aware of something like this, so they can get awareness to it, right? So the more awareness there is, ultimately the more protection there will be for those that aren't able to protect themselves.
And I don't think you need to necessarily know for a fact before you make a report like this. If there's something you suspect or something that seems a little off to you, don't hesitate. Don't hesitate to, start taking notes. And you don't want it to continue if there is, what was it? What was the statistic? Like 95% of the time, when you suspect, you feel that something is off, it is. So don't feel like you have to be an eyewitness to it. If your child says something or someone you know says something, jump into action.
We could see there's a donate button on the upper right-hand corner to promote the work. There's also a get involved button at the bottom. And here's what you can do. You can be a volunteer researcher. You can help by reporting. You can add a message to the Shine Your Light. You could read survivor stories or add your own, right? So getting heard is something, I mean, my wife was subject to a sort of a strange abusive situation. There was a man in our ward who had been a bishop in another ward, moved to our area. He was tall, he had long arms, and he would reach around hugs and catch a little side boob action. And it was uncomfortable. My wife would, when she was a teenager, would go into other rooms when she would see this man coming down the hall. Somebody in the ward, it was reported to us, stopped attending because of this situation. And and we didn't even think about it as something that could be reported on Floodlit. And I don't think my wife has done it yet, but she's considering it, because who knows how far it's gone. Who knows why he had to move into our neighborhood instead of where he was, right? Maybe he got caught in his prior ward where he was bishop and got kicked out of the ward, and then repented, moved to another ward, and now he's the high priest group assistant or leader or something like that, right? And so all these things could happen. And there's references, there's books and videos and websites and other resources. And here's some more things you can do. But yeah, awareness is the first place. And here's the indexing project that they have. It almost reminds me of family history almost now.
Right.
Where they're trying to get cases more readable, I think is what they're trying to do here. And comb databases where the facts and reports are done through the court filings and stuff like that. And so there is a lot you can do. And here's the final contact us. There's some social media links.
I also wanted to real quickly show Tim Kosnov's page for any survivors who want to think about, explore taking legal action or filing some kind of a claim. Can go to kosnov.com. He's got a mailing address and he's on Twitter. Got an email. His phone number is there. And what I think is really interesting is, on the Architecture of Abuse, they do a side podcast about what it's like to go through this process. And, the point is nobody's going to pressure you to do or say anything that you don't want to do or say. They don't make you go through things in excruciating detail. They're there to help you and walk you through that process.
Something interesting. I had a visitor recently who's a member of this community. And she told me that she believed that a lot of these, you see all these pop-up advertisements for attorneys who say, have you been sexually molested by a member of the LDS church? Call blah, blah, blah. She believed that a lot of those were the church who are trying to find out these people before they can report it to the proper authorities. I don't know if there's any validity to that or not, but I would not put it past them.
If that's true, it's diabolical. And I agree with you, Randy. I wouldn't put it past him either. So before you call some 1-800 number that pops up on your screen, some of them also are just unscrupulous attorneys who want to take a deposit from you to investigate your case. And then they'll come back and say, oh, well, we can't really prosecute this one. So you do need to be careful. There, unfortunately, are some despicable people out there. Every time there's a tragedy, they'll come up and say, oh, we're donating to this organization, call this 800 number. But it turns out that really what happens is that they're just collecting money for themselves. So you do have to be careful. If you're going to contact a law firm, I strongly recommend that you contact one that has experience in suing the LDS Church, because the LDS Church has these specific tactics. And that's why I recommend going to Kosnov, because if he can't help you, he's going to refer you to somebody else who has the experience, who can. And probably nobody has more experience suing the Mormon Church than he does.
That's good to know. Yeah, that instills confidence, in that particular attorney. Those of you who report it, just vet the person that you're reporting it to, so that you know that it's a legitimate attorney's office and not the church seeking information.
Right.
And Salt and Pepper lists another thing that can happen once the word is spread out. Memories can happen, right? This says it spurred her memory about something, right? No, even if it's a good memory or bad memory, though, it's just any type of thing that can help. Floodlit says anyone can send an anonymous report and we'll review it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
And I think Floodlit's clarifying some of the comments that I made before about what kind of, report you can do. And so I appreciate that. Thank you.
Right.
Yes. Absolutely. It is a comfort to me. And I've learned in our own podcast, I am so grateful to know that there's a place you can report without having to get involved with an attorney and all that, and find out that I'm just saying that it makes it so easy to report this type of thing. I'm grateful to know that, and I will be spreading the word.
Apparently, Mariska Hargitay produced a documentary and said that there are lots of SA kits that haven't been tested for the DNA and stuff like that. So I think the more it's on people's minds, the more pressure it'll be on public officials, the more pressure it'll be on organizations like churches, like the LDS Church, to be better, right? To do more to protect the people who can't protect themselves.
I would ask Floodlit, since they're on here and listening, if they have a list of attorneys that are reputable and known to specialize in this type of thing.
Yeah, I don't know if when we were scrolling through, I took it out of the stage, but
Well, there is a
I add, but
yeah, there is that ad on their website. There are also articles about statutes of limitations in your state and support organizations. There are also places on their resources tab for survivors where you can get all kinds of different resources for help.
Oh, good. Wonderful.
Well, should we thank everybody for watching, and thanks Megan for being a trooper, and we wish you to get well.
Thanks. I definitely didn't want to miss this one. It's so important to me and to the message that I've been trying to put out there for years. So I appreciate you guys wanting to cover this, and I appreciate everyone watching. Please like the episode and please share it with somebody. It's so important to. Thank you. Yeah, and thanks for saying this, Floodlit. They're working with Andrews and Thornton. Appreciate it.
You bet. And thank you all for joining in and watching. And, if you don't mind, let me do a little commercial. If you wouldn't mind liking this and subscribe to Latter Daily Digest, Megan's Third Verse Universe. What is it, Megan? I'm sorry. Third
underscore verse.
Third underscore verse. And Momo Nomo, we would greatly appreciate that so that you can continue to know when these programs are coming up. And we are every Sunday at 1:00. So by all means, come back next week too.
That's 1:00 Pacific time.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot. There's other time zones in this world. 1:00 Pacific Standard Time, which would be 3:00 Megan's time and 4:00 on the West Coast. And thank you, Mormon Atheist.
Yes, and thanks to everyone who supports our channels. Please get the word out there. We'll be doing this every Sunday. And the whole point of the Salt Lake Expositor is to talk about things that are unhealthy in Mormonism so that we can provide solutions for people who were harmed by Mormonism and for those who continue to stay, to make it a safer place for you.
So normally we like to do this show as call-ins to democratize things that are in the news. We kind of made this more about Floodlit. And since Megan has her allergy issue, taking calls didn't seem like a good thing to do. And so next time we will open up, and if people want to come to Tuesdays with Tim on Tuesday night, and you can join the show or, pop in for a little bit and talk about things like this as well.
Amen.
Thanks, Gene and Randy, for always being awesome and supportive and for letting me take a bit of a back seat today.
Right back at you, Megan.
And I also was thinking of something else. My channel, and I've heard of like at least 3 or 4 other channels that for some reason the ad revenue down, donations are down. So if you would like to donate to Randy or me, don't donate to Megan Connor. That's what I want to say right now.
Oh, Gene,
what?
That's kind of you. Silly.
Yeah. I don't even think I take donations. I don't even know how that works. I'm new in it's my brand new YouTube channel, so don't worry about me.
Yeah, I think I've received more donations for me to give to Tim Rathbone than I've gotten just for me, my channel only. But that's okay. Tim needed the help at the time. He needed travel money so he could go to Thrive.
Well, Tim needs to divide up all these incredible donations he's getting and support Megan and you and I.
That's right. So anyhow, thanks for watching. It's a tough show to watch, but watching and sharing information could save somebody from more abuse than they already are incurring. If you think about it, right? It could be something where somebody is more vigilant, thinks about somebody who goes into another room with no other adults and just being watchful in like the ward buildings or other places for potential abuse situations. And thanks again to Floodlit as well. And so anyhow, I first heard of Floodlit because of Maven Brody, and could have been some other podcasts I heard, but we appreciate what Floodlit is doing, and donate to them as well. They have we showed that donate button. Thanks for watching.
Thank you to Megan. Thank you to Megan Hayes for doing a program on this as well, and allowing us to share the clip with our listeners.
That's right. So Maven works nights and is unable to join us, but Maven is amazing, we'll say. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. Have a good
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
rest of the week. Bye-bye.